Part 47. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 461. Chapter 461, Chongyin suffered successive setbacks. The boarding time is approaching, and the airport ground staff personally come to remind you. Mr. Chong, Mr. Shen, and the two assistants can now use the VIP channel to board the plane. Kong Guyan stood up and glanced at Shen Yunqing again. Su Qingmei went crazy in the villa last night, and then she seemed to see some news on the internet, and she was so stimulated that she almost lost her mind. Of course, his role in treating the sequelae of Su Qingmei's injury was also part of this. After all, such a deep wound can be healed in one night, so how could it have no side effects? Easily irritable mood is the least worth mentioning among the side effects. But there is no need for him to tell Su Qingmei this. The only role this person has in him now is her fame in the entertainment industry and the love of her fans. But the source of Su Qingmei's madness was that after learning that Zhang Lingzi was also involved, he also watched the program called Heritage. From this, I paid attention to another person who appeared on the show, Shen Yunqing. At this moment, there was a person walking aside who was almost 1 meter away from him. He was not sure what he saw through the screen last night, but now, this is actually another young man with good luck. There was Zhang Lingzi before me. Although Shen Yunqing was not as good as Zhang Lingzi, compared to ordinary people, he was like a proud man of heaven. Now I actually meet two of them one after another, and they are still so young. Even he couldn't help but feel a little jealous. However, besides being lucky, there is something weird about Shen Yunqing. And with his current ability, he actually can't see much. In addition, there was a faint aura floating on the two young men following Shen Yunqing. Shen Yunqing is either related to the magician, or the weirdness in him is protected and hidden by the powerful magician. Thinking of this possibility, after walking into the quiet and spacious VIP passage, Chongyin took the initiative to speak. I think Mr. Shen is a bit kind. Mr. Shen was one of the commentators on the Heritage of Calligraphy and Painting broadcast yesterday. I remember Shen, my husband's introduction on the program was about a career related to history. This time I went to Liangchuan. Could it be that there are some antiques there that need to be studied for historical value? Liangchuan was an important business base between the Central Plains and the Western regions in ancient times. It has been prosperous for thousands of years. It is not unusual for antiques to appear there. He thought he found the topic quite well. Furthermore, Shen Yunqing also brought two young men with him who were probably magicians. He was indeed a little curious about the purpose of these people going to Liangchuan. If he remembered correctly, he still remembered a guess made by the door owner. Shen Yunqing did not expect that he would take a flight with Chongyin. Although he was not sure what the other party's purpose was at this moment, he could just ignore it. This matter is confidential and has no comment. Kong Guyan smiled good-naturedly and did not speak again. When they got on the plane, the two of them were sitting in the front seat again. However, the business class cabin is spacious and the service is attentive. As soon as Shen Yunqing took his seat, he closed his eyes and rested his mind. Chang Ying and Chang Fu, who were following him, also followed suit. Besides, after getting off the plane, we will enter the desert immediately. The desert is full of dangers, and there will be no adequate rest time. Chongyin sat on the seat at the back, glanced at Shen Yunqing who had closed his eyes, and took a gentle breath. His practice has a side effect that he thinks is very good. It can make those who meet him like him at first sight. As we spend more time together, this good feeling will gradually deepen. Some people are full of emotions, and they feel so good that they are even willing to die for him. Some will turn into fanatical worship, such as Luan Feng, who will be a tool under his command that will never betray. If it weren't for the fact that this fanatical admiration was rare, he would have given up on this person long ago after Luan Feng disobeyed him and took it upon himself to find Zhang Lingzi and failed. The feeling of encountering Waterloo is not pleasant. First it was Zhang Lingzi, and now there is Shen Yunqing. Obviously he is not a magician, but he is not affected by him at all. Looking at him is no different from looking at other people. They all carry a kind of luck that he can't help but covet. Really, while it made him unhappy, he couldn't help but think about how lucky he would be if he could get the willing love or worship of these two people, until he was willing to give his own life without reservation. By that time, he might be able to be on an equal footing with the sect master, who is like a heavenly being. Eternal life is really the most wonderful word in the world. But until the plane landed, Changyin could not find a chance to say another word to Shen Yunqing. On the way back to the set in the car, Lu Enhua didn't dare to say anything. Although the adult seems to be smiling, he seems to be in a good mood. But she is no longer very close to the adults. Now her expression is like wearing a mask, but in fact the air pressure around her body is really low. It was already dark when we arrived at the set, but the set was still very lively. It looked like they were filming a night scene. Lu Enhua put the suitcase into the tent. "Sir, please take a rest first. I'll go find the director to cancel my leave first." Kong Guyan was about to sit down, but he straightened up after hearing this. "I'll go with you." Lu Enhua wanted to ask but didn't dare to ask. In the end, the two of them arrived at the set one after another. At a glance, Kong Guyan saw Zhang Lingzi sitting quietly on the edge of the set. She was wearing a thick coat. It seemed that there was no scene to be filmed tonight. Was she going to the set to watch other people acting? He waved his hand to stop Lu Enhua and walked over. Zhang Lingzi noticed it when Kong Guyan looked towards him, but he didn't look back. It wasn't until this moment that someone walked up to her and blocked her view of watching other people's performances. Then she looked over and said, "Mr. Chang left in such a hurry before. Now that he's back, has the urgent matter been taken care of?" "It's an emergency. Because I have delayed Miss Jiang's filming these days, I am here to solemnly apologize to Miss Jiang." After Changyin finished speaking, he bowed slightly, which seemed very sincere. However, there were so many people who saluted her in her previous life, and basically everyone had to salute when they saw her. Changyin's gift seemed elegant and sincere to others, but in her opinion, it was half perfunctory and half artificial. It was really an eyesore. It's good that Mr. Chang knows. In fact, not only do you have to apologize to me, but the rest of the crew was also delayed a lot of time. These are all because of your willfulness in asking for leave." Although the last sentence was not spoken, Zhang Lingzi expressed it with her eyes. The smile that had been hanging on Kong Guyan's lips almost couldn't be maintained. "Everyone is busy, so I have to find Miss Jiang first." After a pause, he continued, "I also want to talk to Miss Jiang about a scene for tomorrow, so I can find it easily." Before he could finish speaking this time, Zhang Lingzi had already stood up and interrupted him. "Mr. Chang has been on the road for a day, so don't worry about tomorrow's scenes. Go back and have a good rest to recharge your batteries after that," he said. No Changning, who was waving to her from afar, walked over. Kong Guyan turned to look in the direction where Zhang Lingzi had left. His handsome face sank into the shadows, inexplicably looking a little more ferocious. Zhang Lingzi walked up to Changning and saw that her other hand was still holding the satellite phone she was talking on. Changning hurriedly handed over the phone. "This is from Sir. They have arrived in Liangchuan." Zhang Lingzi's hand that was about to answer the phone paused in mid-air. Could it be that she really guessed it right? End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 462. Zhang Lingzi walked towards the RV while answering the phone. "Changyin has returned to the set. Did you take the same flight as him?" "Well, it's still the front and rear seats." "Zhang Lingzi. He even took the initiative to talk to me." Zhang Lingzi frowned immediately. "What did he say?" He said he had seen me on the show The Legend of the World and asked me what I was doing in Liangchuan, but I ignored him. Zhang Lingzi couldn't help but look back at the figure who was still standing there. Kong Guyan looks easygoing and has a good temper, but it's all superficial. His true appearance is much more arrogant and cold than others. It's just that the face is too bluffing, so it's hard to tell. Approaching her also has an ulterior motive. So, why did you take the initiative to talk to Shen Yunqing? However, no matter what the purpose is, just ignore it, it must not be a good intention. Shen Yunqing couldn't help but laugh and agreed, I think so too. Wuju, who was sitting aside, couldn't help turning his head and quietly rolling his eyes. Don't these two people feel that this conversation is a bit childish? After rolling his eyes, he turned his head back and mouthed a reminder, USB flash drive. Shen Yunqing glanced at him and was about to speak when Zhang Lingzi's voice came over first, shall I ask Chang Ning to send you the USB flash drive tomorrow? Can I go over and get it? I just happened to be visiting the class. Since Chong Yin has watched Legends of the World, Su Qingmei may have told him that he knows that I know you. It won't be awkward to visit the class. Zhang Lingzi didn't say yes or no, but suddenly asked, now that you have come to Liangchuan, do you plan to go into the desert yourself? Yes, Wu Zhu is here too. Hearing Shen Yunqing's signal, Wu Fan cleared his throat and said, don't worry, I will definitely take good care of Yunqing's health along the way. Zhang Lingzi was reluctantly relieved, then you can come over tomorrow, but I have a lot of drama tomorrow, so I'm afraid I won't be able to take care of you. See you tomorrow. Hang up the phone, Zhang Lingzi looked back at Chang Ning who was following behind. Yunqing will come over tomorrow and take away the USB flash drive in the name of a visiting team. Chang Ning nodded after hearing this, then I'll tell Director Wei later. Also together there is Wu Zhu. Chang Ning was stunned for a moment. But he is a monk, so he probably won't show up. This is what Zhang Lingzi guessed. After all, who would bring a monk to visit the crew, not to mention that there are also Chong Yin and Luan Hua in the crew who are likely to come from the Changkang Gate. Taking all things into account, although Wu Zhu will follow Shen Yunqing, there is a high possibility that he will not show up and meet Kong Guyan. That's right, his big bald head would be too conspicuous if he appeared. Since no one had arrived yet, Chang Ning boldly complained. Sister Zixi, I'll go find Director Wei first. Zhang Lingzi returned to the RV and took out the USB flash drive with the Changkangman mark on it to look at before preparing to wash up. When Shen Yunqing and the others come over tomorrow, the secret may be revealed. Asterisk. It's near noon. The crew has not finished work yet. However, the smell of rice was already drifting along the wind from the direction of the camp, making everyone who was already hungry after working all morning unable to help but swallow their saliva. Seeing this, Wei Xiao picked up the loudspeaker at hand and said, take one more shot. After that, we will call it a day and have dinner. When everyone heard this, they immediately cheered up. At the same time, a desert off-road vehicle sped towards the camp. Su Zhao has already received instructions from Wei Xiao, and today the crew will have a distinguished guest coming to visit the crew. When the car stopped, he led two of his men to meet it. When we arrived in front of the car, the other party just happened to lower the window. Is this Mr. Shen? Yes. Su Zhao followed the sound and looked towards the back seat. At this sight, I was stunned. Part of the reason was that he didn't expect that there was a monk wearing a string of Buddhist beads around his neck in the car, and there was also the man who had just answered. After meeting Mr. Chong Yin Chong on this set, he felt that there should be no one in the world who was better looking than that person. Now it seems that he is ignorant. This Mr. Shen is not inferior to Mr. Chong in both appearance and temperament. More importantly, Mr. Shen made him feel more comfortable than Mr. Chong. He used to be a soldier, and some personal experiences made him believe that intuition can sometimes save people. Mr. Shen, please come in. The car drove until it was near Zhang Lingzi's RV. However, although there were 4 people sitting in the car, only 2 got off. Although Su Zhao was a little confused, he didn't ask any more questions. After waiting for people to get off the bus, he explained, "The crew has not finished work yet. I am responsible for the security of the crew. Director Wei specially asked me to come and greet Mr. Shen. Why don't we go to the cafeteria and sit down and wait for lunch? It's done, and the crew should finish work soon." He is still a little unclear about the identity of Mr. Shen, but if Director Wei can tell him specifically early in the morning, and the man in front of him is full of magnanimity, he cannot be an ordinary person. "No hurry, please take me to the set to have a look. Could this be an investor? But will investors come all the way to visit the company despite the wind and sand?" Thoughts flashed through his mind quickly, and Su Zhao stretched out his hand, "Please follow me." The studio has always been noisy, with people coming and going and machines roaring. This time, Zhang Lingzi went against everyone's expectations of finishing work as soon as possible and going to dinner. In addition, the filming was also a fight scene, so she naturally had to concentrate without any distractions. Shen Yunqing had no intention of disturbing others. After walking to the edge of the set, he found a position where he could see the center of the set clearly and stood still. The only thing in sight was the dexterous and vigorous figure holding a short wooden warehouse. The long shadow who was following him also looked over, and then he was really stunned for a moment. Not only was he surprised by his husband's wife's obviously lethal skills, but he was also surprised by another person who was filming a rival scene at the moment. "I just saw it yesterday when I was on a plane." "Actor, this person is actually an actor, I'm afraid I'm not kidding him. However, thinking about my husband also filming and recording shows, my mood finally calmed down. Okay, everyone has worked hard, get ready to call it a day and go have a meal." Zhang Lingzi handed the props and weapons in her hands to the props team members who were running over, and untied her cloak with one hand. Then she turned around and her eyes met Shen Yunqing's gaze accurately. Putting the cloak on his forearm, Zhang Lingzi waved to Lu Zhengzheng, who was about to take over the cloak, and strode towards Shen Yunqing. After watching the playback on the monitor, Wei Xiao was about to call someone over to say a word. When he looked up, he saw Zhang Lingzi's back walking away quickly, and then looked at the direction she was walking in. "It's that independent prime minister in white?" He silently closed his mouth again. "Still not annoying anymore. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry." Author, Press 11. Chapter 463. Shen Yunqing's position was quite hidden, but when Zhang Lingzi walked up to him, almost everyone on the set followed him. "Cold. Somewhat." Zhang Lingzi immediately opened the cloak on her arm and put it on his shoulders. "Tie it yourself." Shen Yunqing was really stunned for a moment. He subconsciously glanced at the people who were looking towards him with wide eyes. He realized that the cloak was about to slide down. He quickly raised his hand to pinch the 2 straps of the cloak and flexibly slapped it. "Not. Walk." Watching the 2 figures walking side by side go away, everyone gradually came back to their senses. There seems to be something a little wrong. As for the few people who knew the relationship between the 2, they also had an ant's smile on their lips unknowingly. Perfect sense of CP, plus outstanding appearance and even more outstanding temperament, just looking at it is pleasing to the eye. Knock, knock hard. It wasn't until another burst of rice smell hit that everyone suppressed their shock, finished their work, and walked towards the canteen in 2s and 3s. Kong Guyan did not move. Luan Hua naturally did not dare to move. It wasn't until she saw that few people were leaving the lively set that she cautiously took a step forward and whispered, "Sir. From what you see, What is the relationship between Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing? Although this question sounded calm, Lu Enhua sensitively sensed that there was something stormy about it. She thought about it carefully and then whispered back, looking at yesterday's show, the two of them should be good friends in private. But just now, there was a feeling between the two of them that no one else could get in. The relationship needs to be closer, maybe. Lu Enhua failed to express the most important conclusion later. Because Chang Yin, who was walking in front of her, strode away before she could finish speaking. The back view is more chilling. In the cafeteria, Zhang Lingzi was introducing Shen Yunqing to the crew's lunch in the desert. Although the conditions are limited, the food is generally very good, and there is no shortage of vegetables and fruits. There is also the soup, which is a must-have every day. The air in the Gobi Desert is dry, and it is easy to get angry and have nosebleeds. This soup can reduce inflammation and moisturize dryness. As Zhang Lingzi introduced, she picked up a spoon and made a big bowl for the person standing next to her without any explanation. Everyone took a few days to get used to it when we first came here. I'm afraid you didn't get used to it very well when you first came here. Drink more. Chang Ying, who was following the two of them, quickly took the large bowl of soup and said, "I'll serve it." "Who is this?" "Long Shadow." "Chang Ying, should you know Chang Ning?" Seeing Chang Ying nodding, Zhang Lingzi gestured to Chang Ning and Lu Zhengzheng, who had just come in from outside, and said with a smile, "Chang Ning is here, go talk to her and reminisce about the past." Chang Ying put the soup in his hand on the table and left. Zhang Lingzi specially picked a corner location. Everyone who came into the tent one after another was very interested in seeing this, and after finishing the meal, they were stunned and did not sit here. You can rest for about an hour after eating. Not long after Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing returned to the RV, they saw Chang Ning coming up with Wu Ju and a young man carrying a computer bag. Before she could speak this time, the other party introduced herself with a smile. "Hello, Madam Boss, I am Chang Fu, and my specialty is information technology." Zhang Lingzi raised her eyebrows. "Are you familiar with me? I usually work behind the scenes." As soon as he said this, Zhang Lingzi understood. This is a technical worker who must have done things for her behind the scenes under Shen Yunqing's orders before. Shen Yunqing raised his hand and asked the two of them to sit down. The main reason for asking him to come here this time is to crack the USB flash drive. Zhang Lingzi had already taken out the USB flash drive when he said this, and handed it over directly. "This is it." When it came to his major, Chang Fu's smiling face suddenly became more serious. After taking the USB flash drive and looking at it carefully, he unzipped his computer bag and took out a bulky-looking computer. "I remember Chang Ning said on the phone before that the owner of the USB flash drive at that time ordered that as long as the USB flash drive is plugged into the computer, someone will come to find it." "That's right. Then there should be a signal transmitting device in this USB flash drive. After plugging it into the computer, it will turn on by default." While talking about this speculation, Chang Fu also took out a small tool from his computer bag. The box was opened after pressing the fingerprint lock. Zhang Lingzi sat opposite and glanced at the open toolbox. There were so many small objects that few of them could be recognized. "I have to disassemble the USB flash drive and take out the signal transmitting device inside first." Zhang Lingzi looked at the USB flash drive that was no bigger than a finger. This was probably a delicate job. Shen Yunqing gently tugged on her sleeve and waited for Zhang Lingzi to look over. "You have been filming all morning. Do you want to take a break?" "No need." Zhang Lingzi shook her head without thinking. "I'm not tired. I didn't film in the past 2 days, so I'm pretty much rested." Just when Lu Zhengzheng, who had been taking a break at Pei Xinyuan's place at noon after being dismissed by her, came over and knocked on the car door to remind him to start work, the progress on Chang Fu's side was that he had just opened the shell of the USB flash drive. "You guys keep busy. If you are thirsty or hungry, there is food and drinks in the small refrigerator. I will go filming first." When Zhang Lingzi brought Lu Zhengzheng and Chang Ning back to the set, she saw many people looking behind her. Wei Minmin even asked directly, "Why didn't Mr. Shen come with us? Then he is a bit unqualified as a detective. If you are tired, rest in the car." Wei Minmin suddenly had an indescribable look on her face. "Zhang Lingzi, I remember there is a military training scene in the afternoon. Let's practice first." Wei Minmin quickly put her expression aside and quickly took 3 steps back. "No, no, no, just start shooting and practice again. I promise not to hold you back." Chang Yin, who was passing by and heard the conversation between the two, couldn't help but look back in the direction of the RV. The fingers under the sleeves could not help but rub gently. If the relationship between two people blessed by good fortune really is what he guessed, I am afraid that only the master of the house can deal with it in person. But how could he give up such a huge bargain? The only option is to find a way to separate the two people as much as possible, and it would be better if they misunderstand each other or even break up. There are many young girls in this crew, like Shen Yunqing, who are trying to encourage them. He doesn't believe that no one has thought boldly. However, those extras may not be qualified, and the more important actresses are Wei Minmin and Pei Xinyuan, who plays Qing Yuan. Wei Minmin had just escaped from Zhang Lingzi's extra training and called for the makeup artist to touch up her makeup, when she felt an inexplicable chill on her back. Zhang Lingzi had just sat down on the rest chair when she heard the movement next to her and turned her head to look over, and saw Chang Yin sitting next to her. It's rare for Mr. Shen to come to visit the class, so he shouldn't leave so soon, right? Zhang Lingzi looked at him steadily for a few seconds. Does this have anything to do with you? Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 464. Chapter 464. The map of the ancient capital ruins in the USB flash drive. To be honest with Miss Zhang, I fell in love with Mr. Shen at first sight. It's just that Mr. Shen's personality seemed a bit cold and he was really unkind to me. I thought that if we could get along with him more, he would change his mind about me. When Kong Guyan said this, his expression and tone were sincere, coupled with his face which is a bit troubled and melancholy. Zhang Lingzi soon heard several gasps of surprise coming from the opposite side. It's just that she's not one of them at all. He even looked at her with a colder look. We felt like old friends at first sight. Exactly. I don't know if Mr. Shen told you that we came to Liangchuan from the imperial capital and took the same plane. How do you feel like an old friend at first sight? If possible, I would like to make friends with Mr. Shen. Mr. Shen is young and really outstanding. And I like to make friends with outstanding people the most. Zhang Lingzi then slightly raised her lips and smiled at him. He should leave tomorrow. She wanted to see what this man was planning behind his back. Kong Guyan pursed his lips. He thought people would stay for several days, since it was a rare visit. There is only one night left, and I have to say that time is a bit tight. After finishing work in the afternoon, Zhang Lingzi asked Lu Zhengzheng and Chang Ning to get food. She took off her makeup and went directly back to the RV. Facing the eyes of several people in the car who were looking at her, she walked to the seat next to Shen Yunqing and sat down naturally. How is it? How is the afternoon going? Changfu rotated the computer in front of him 180 degrees, so that the screen was facing Zhang Lingzi. The contents of the USB flash drive have been successfully deciphered and it is a map. Zhang Lingzi glanced at the screen and recognized what it was: ruins. Shen Yunqing hummed, it is still the ruins of an ancient capital that dates back more than 3,000 years. Zhang Lingzi couldn't help but glance at him, and met Shen Yunqing's gaze. Instantly understand what the other person means. The ruins of this ancient capital are about the same age as the founding of Dayan. As an organization where everyone in the sect is actively seeking immortality, Changkang sect will never go to the desert for archaeology for no reason, and some people have even paid the price with their lives. The owner of this USB flash drive is one of them. Then what are they looking for? It seems that we must go into this desert. Liu just stretched out his hand to enlarge the map on the computer screen. Based on my understanding of the Changkang sect, their sect leader will definitely not do anything without aim. She has her purpose. There must be something she wants within the ruins of this ancient capital. Zhang Lingzi looked at Liuju and continued to inquire, why do I feel that Liuju is very familiar with the leader of the Changkang sect? Haha, Liuju laughed dryly, indifferently, isn't there a saying that the person who understands each other best is one's own enemy? That's true. Zhang Lingzi nodded, even though he could see that Liuju had something to hide, he didn't ask any more questions. Since you have decided to go to the desert, when are you going to set off? It was Changfu who answered this time. He pointed at the USB flash drive that had been inserted into the computer and was no longer the same as it was before. Although I removed the signal transmitter on the USB flash drive, I'm still not sure. Is there any other method used? Chang Ning was accidentally injured when he encountered it, so my suggestion is that the faster the better. Zhang Lingzi pursed her lips and frowned slightly. She has calculated that the cruise part about her can be filmed in about 10 days according to the current progress. She thought about following him deep into the desert. But looking at it now, I can only think about it. Have you made all the preparations for entering the desert? Shen Yunqing nodded, I have arranged a team of more than 10 people, all of whom are good players. Together with Liuju and Changjing Changfu, the vehicles and supplies are all ready. They are now on standby at the edge of the desert. The 3 people he called also nodded in unison. Although Liuju felt a little guilty when he was asked just now, he looked directly into Zhang Lingzi's eyes and assured her firmly, don't worry, I will bring them out safely. Zhang Lingzi was naturally relieved that Shen Yunqing was doing things, but what she was worried about was the desert at this time. It was almost the end of October, but she still remembered that it would snow in about 10 days. The satellite director has asked the locals here before that it is likely to snow here at the end of the month, and there will be super cold air attacks at that time. I am not sure whether it will snow at the ancient capital site you are going to, but it will probably snow by then. The temperature will definitely drop. Therefore, you should return as much as possible within 10 days. Also, be sure to bring more warm clothes and equipment. As soon as the voice fell, several heads in the carriage nodded. Liuju sighed, I figured it out. Since the local indigenous people also see it this way, it should definitely snow. When Chang Ning and Lu Zhengzheng came back from their meal, everyone had their dinner in the carriage, tidied up and got out of the car. Chang Ning and Lu Zhengzheng also took toiletries and left hand in hand, preparing not to come back for the rest of the night. Anyway, there are still some tents left for the production crew. If not, we can still find someone we know to squeeze in at night. Determined not to return to the RV as a light bulb. So the carriage, which was a little crowded during dinner, soon became empty. Kong Guyan came up to me in the afternoon and said that he fell in love with you at first sight and wanted to make friends with you. I think he has evil intentions. Shen Yunqing, I think so too. He tried every possible means today to find out when you were going to leave. I'll reply tomorrow. Shen Yunqing, if he really does something small, he will only have time to go up tonight. Then let's see what other methods he can use. Although Zhang Lingzi wanted to see how Changyin would act this time, she would not ignore Shen Yunqing's danger. She planned to hold this man's hand and sleep tonight, and there was a boy in the car next to her. Even if it is a method that only Kong Guyan's magicians can master, Liuju should be able to detect it. You can't call people unconscious, which means they really have no feelings. By the way, what did you want to say just now? Even though he now knew that Changyin might do something small to him, Shen Yunqing didn't feel nervous at all. After all, the person in front of him made him much more nervous. I want to see that painting. Painting? Zhang Lingzi quickly remembered which painting he was talking about. She stood up and walked to the built-in safe at the bedside for storing valuables. After unlocking it with her fingerprint, she opened it and took out the well-preserved scroll. She turned around and saw Shen Yunqing standing behind her. She handed it forward. "Give." Shen Yunqing quickly took it with both hands, walked back to the table, wiped the already clean tabletop with a paper towel, then put the scroll on it and opened it lightly. Zhang Lingzi couldn't help but raise her eyebrows when she saw his serious look. Those who didn't know this thought they were dealing with a rare treasure. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 465. However, this is just a painting that does not even have a signature and cannot be found even if it is an antique. Otherwise, Zhang Runqing would not have thought of selling the painting for money. Although this painting was passed down from generation to generation, if there is no signature and seal, and the provenance cannot be found, the value will be greatly reduced. But now, Zhang Lingzi was waiting for Shen Yunqing to open all the scrolls. Lin Buting suddenly said, "Although there is no signature on this painting, I think you have made dozens if not 100 paintings. If I didn't have this one, you guessed it wrong, you should have painted it too, right?" Shen Yunqing's hand that fell under the scroll suddenly froze. Zhang Lingzi glanced at it and then said, "I have the impression that you have never painted such a painting for me, so there are two possibilities. You painted it secretly behind my back at this point," she paused and said, "or, painted after my death." At this moment, Shen Yunqing's fingers were not only stiff, but his back was also visibly tense. Zhang Lingzi patted his shoulder, and her tone was a little more confused. "Then how could this painting appear in the Zhang family today?" According to Zhang Runqing, this painting was handed down by their ancestors. If it hadn't happened to be I saw that he was ready to sell the painting. Shen Yunqing didn't even think about it, he dares. Seeing his reaction, Zhang Lingzi had a smile in her eyes, but her tone was still doubtful. "Could it be that you really gave this painting to the Zhang family?" "I painted it, but you didn't give it to me, but to Zhang home." "Shen Yunqing doesn't want to explain why you did this." "I." After the word "I," the two people in the carriage looked outside the carriage and asked, "Who?" Asterisk. From returning from work, to looking at the map of the ancient capital ruins on the USB flash drive, to discussing preparations for going to the desert, and then having dinner, it was already past 9 o'clock or almost 10 o'clock. The signal here is not good, and everyone has been tired for another day. At this time, most people have basically fallen asleep in the tent. Coupled with the fact that the temperature difference has increased again after nightfall in the past few days, with the temperature at night reaching as low as 0 degrees, who would wander outside at night? As Zhang Lingzi spoke, she picked up the clothes on the side and put them on to go out for a look. Shen Yunqing didn't have time to explain and followed her closely. The car door opened, and Shen Yunqing couldn't help coughing from the cold air that poured in. Zhang Lingzi was just about to ask him to return to the carriage when she heard Hughes's voice not far away. "Miss Wei, why are you here so late at night?" I came to see Mr. Shen for something." "But it's too late." "If there's nothing urgent, it's not too late to wait until tomorrow," Hughes said when he saw that Wei Minmin was still walking towards the RV, and quickly reached out to stop him. "Mr. and Miss Zhang should have rested by now." As soon as he finished speaking, he heard Zhang Lingzi's voice behind him. "Hughes, let her come over." Hughes turned around and saw that the door of the RV had been opened when she stopped. Wei Minmin, and her husband's wife, Ms. Zhang, had already gotten out of the RV. He hurriedly stepped aside and explained, "I was just about to patrol the area again before going to sleep, when I saw this Miss Wei coming straight this way. I just had a face-to-face meeting. She said she was looking for Mr. Shen." Without Huzi stopping him, Wei Minmin immediately walked up to Zhang Lingzi in 3 steps and 2 steps at a time, but his eyes first glanced at Shen Yunqing, who was standing behind him, and then moved to Zhang Lingzi's face. Smiling Yingying said, Sister 11, I have something to do with Mr. Shen. Can I borrow some time from you? Zhang Lingzi looked at Wei Minmin, who looked normal on the surface, and squinted her eyes. This was indeed the tone of voice this girl usually used when talking to her. She probably felt a little embarrassed after saying this, and even touched her earlobe, which was also a little habit of this girl. Nothing seems wrong. However, the biggest problem was that Wei Minmin knew about her relationship with Shen Yunqing and came over late at night to see Shen Yunqing alone. She asked calmly, what's the matter that even I can't listen to? It's just, oh, I'm embarrassed to say it in front of Sister 11. Zhang Lingzi didn't wait for her to finish her words this time. She turned to look at Hu Ziyi, who was still standing there with his mouth agape. Go and see if Wu Ju is sleeping. Call someone over. After speaking, she looked back at Shen Yunqing and blinked. Shen Yunqing naturally understood what she meant instantly and cooperated to see what the person behind the scenes wanted to do. Seeing that Huzi had already run to call Wu Ju, he nodded helplessly. Miss Wei, please take a step to speak. As he spoke, he walked to the front of the RV first, and at the same time quietly turned on the driving recorder installed on the front of the car. What does Miss Wei want to say to me? At the same time, Zhang Lingzi, who returned to the car, also turned on the screen of the driving recorder. In the night vision mode, the two figures were quite clear. It's just a bit far away. As soon as this thought crossed her mind, she saw Wei Minmin suddenly take 2 steps forward on the screen. Originally, the distance between the two people was almost 3 meters. Now that they stepped forward, the distance became less than 1 meter, and they could reach each other with their hands. Mr. Shen is the most outstanding person I have ever met, although what I said next is a bit sorry for Sister 11, I still want to say it. If I say it, I will have no regrets. Mr. Shen. Hearing this, Shen Yunqing almost understood the purpose of controlling Wei Minmin, so there was no need to continue talking, and he interrupted directly, then there is no need to say it. No. In a tent lit by faint candlelight. Luan Hua looked at the candle carefully while listening to the thin and sharp voice that reached her ears. After hesitating for a moment, she couldn't help but speak, Sir, Wei Minmin's side probably won't succeed. Kong Guyan nodded slightly, I know. Then why are you still? What about the whole thing? I didn't expect to succeed in the first time. Zhang Lingzi is a person who doesn't tolerate criticism. Speaking of it, her character is quite similar to the Emperor Yuan Zhao she plays. Wei Minmin can't do much, as long as she can make Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing get along with each other. As long as there is a crack in the relationship, with Zhang Lingzi's temper, she won't tolerate even if Shen Yunqing slacks off because of Wei Minmin. Luan Hua wanted to say that since Zhang Lingzi had such a domineering temperament and was difficult to get close to, but Shen Yunqing could become the person she cared about, then the relationship between the two must be long enough and deep enough. But seeing the confidence and unquestioning expression on the adult's face, she swallowed her words silently. After seeing Liuja coming over, Zhang Lingzi turned off the driving recorder and turned to look in the direction of the car door. Wei Minmin had fallen into a coma and was carried into the carriage by him. 1 meter away was Shen Yunqing, who followed him. After Liuja put the person on the sofa, Zhang Lingzi handed the cup that had just been filled with hot water into the hands of Shen Yunqing, who had been blowing cold wind outside for several minutes, and then asked in a cold voice, How is Minmin? Can you watch it? Is it Chong Yin's hand? Put a small thing into the ear, and I will pull it out immediately, and the person will return to normal. This is indeed Yin Chong's handiwork. Yin Chong. Well, Yin Chong is his real name now that he has reversed his name, he is really confident. Yin Chong. Zhang Lingzi silently recited the name several times in her mouth, then she saw Liuja taking out a copper bowl as big as a child's hand from the small cloth bag he carried with him. As soon as he opened the lid, a faint scent of Sanskrit fragrance wafted out. After we lure that little thing out, Yin Chong should be aware of it, right? Liuja nodded. When a person who was originally awake suddenly fell into a coma, he already sensed that something was wrong. When I lure that thing out, he should be able to guess that I am here too. Zhang Lingzi's eyes narrowed. End of chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 466. Chapter 466. The exploration mission is not completed. There are two choices before us now. To save people, Liu Ju, who had been hiding deliberately, will be discovered by Yin Chong. Yin Chong will doubt Liu Ju's purpose of coming here, and may even further guess that they are going to the ancient capital ruins in the desert. Yin Chong knew about it, and if he spread the news back to the door, it would mean that Changkang clan knew about it. By then, the two sides are likely to encounter each other in the ruins. Facing the enemy, you don't need to think about how both sides will react. Without saving people, Liuji's existence will not be noticed by Yin Chong, and no one will know about their plan to explore the ruins of the ancient desert capital, which will be much safer and smoother. However, this choice does not require a choice at all. A life was at stake, and even the three people present knew in their hearts that Yin Chong could not really take Wei Minmin's life. Let's not talk about the future, let's talk about the immediate future. Once something happens to Wei Minmin, whether it is her role or her identity, the show will definitely not be able to continue filming. But, what if that thing is in the brain, and Wei Minmin really suffered from their unreasonable disaster this time? Liuju held the copper bowl and placed it under Wei Minmin's ear. Zhang Lingzi watched as his fingers tapped Wei Minmin's head a few times. A winding red line appeared on Wei Minmin's white and tender ears, extending all the way to the corners of the closed eyes. His eyebrows furrowed again. Although it is not yet certain whether Yin Chong knows about Changkangman's discovery of the ancient capital ruins, you should prepare for the worst. When Zhang Lingzi said this, she also thought about the possibility of going directly to silence Yin Chong, but it was obviously unrealistic, so I had to give up this plan. I said before that we need to prepare more materials to keep out the cold, and now we need to add more weapons that can be used. Shen Yunqing also had a stern look on his face. After hearing these instructions, he calmed down, took a sip of water and nodded, okay. While the two of them were talking, they were both looking at the red line on Wei Minmin's face. After a while, the red line that was originally motionless suddenly started to twist. This scene had to be said to be a bit weird. That thing bit through the blood vessels in the ear and got in, and it also had a certain paralysis effect. This girl is an ordinary person, so she didn't notice it at all. Since we crawled in through blood vessels, now we also crawl out through blood vessels. Soon, 3 pairs of eyes saw a drop of blood dripping out of Wei Minmin's ear, and then another drop, but in the latter drop of blood, it was obvious that there was a thin white streak inside. Crack. 2 drops of blood fell into the copper bowl almost at the same time. Liuja quickly clicked the lid and said, okay. Zhang Lingzi took a tissue and wiped the wound on Wei Minmin's ear, and then watched the bloodline disappear. Will she remember what she did tonight when she wakes up? She will just think this is a dream, and she will probably forget it all when she wakes up, Liuja said and knocked on the copper bowl that made a hissing sound. This thing is taken from Yin Chong. The famous habit should be called dream-making gu, which is to forcefully insert a dream and control people to turn the dream into reality. It is not very powerful, but it is quite disgusting. Gu. Liuja glanced at Shen Yunqing, who was still drinking water quietly. Yin Chong's status in Changkang clan is not low. His biggest trump card is a life gu, which was given to him by the master of Changkang clan. He uses this fate gu, has created many gadgets, and this dream-making gu is one of them. After hearing this, Zhang Lingzi raised her eyes and looked at him quietly. Wuja's heart jumped at this sight. It's getting late, I'll send this girl back, and you two should have a rest early. After saying that, he put the copper bowl into the cloth bag, put Wei Minmin on his back again, and left in a hurry. Shen Yunqing followed behind and closed the car door. Turning around, he met a pair of smiling eyes. Unknowingly, it's past 10 o'clock, and it's really time to rest. I'm going to wash up first. When I come out, you should have organized what you want to say to me, right? This night, things happened one after another, and she continued, I haven't even had time to wash up yet. Good. Asterisk. The candlelight in the tent suddenly went out. It means that the dream-making goo that was just planted in Wei Minmin's brain died unexpectedly before it could complete its mission. Yin Chang's face turned pale and he stood up suddenly. Luan Hua watched helplessly as the candle in front of him was extinguished. There was no wind at all in the tent. The candle seemed to be extinguished suddenly by an invisible hand. Even though she was sitting opposite the adult, after seeing this scene, she couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat on her back. Sir, this. How come this thing that was burning so well suddenly went out? The dream-making goo is dead, Yin Chang said, and was about to walk out of the tent. After taking 2 steps, he suddenly stopped and said, Wuju is here. Wuju. Luan Hua didn't react for a while, but when he did, he stood up subconsciously. Wuju? How did he get here? Changning, and that changing, Yin Chang sneered briefly. I should have thought that Shen Yunqing and Zhang Lingzi should have a close relationship with Wuju. He didn't show up on purpose, probably because he didn't want me to know. This time he had no choice but to do so. Take action and expose yourself. As for his purpose of coming to the desert, hasn't he always wanted to stop the sect leader's immortality plan, and this time should be no exception? By the way, are there any tasks related to the desert here recently in the sect? Luan Hua quickly took out a specially made mobile phone, unlocked it and clicked on the only software on it. Address search, Liangchuan, Desert. Yes, it is an exploration mission of ancient capital ruins. The mission has been accepted some time ago, and it shows that it is still being explored and has not been completed. Strange, it has been several days. Yin Chang directly took the mobile phone in her hand and used his authority to search out the person who took the task. It was Kongju who took the task. His strength is no worse than mine. Then the problem arises. The casualty rate of the exploration mission was not high. Although the mission was located in the desert, with the strength of Kongju, it would not have taken so many days to complete. Did he die in an accident? If Wuju came here this time also for the ruins of the ancient capital, how did he know about it? The more he thought about it, the more confused he became, so Yin Chang simply made a call directly to Kongju's mobile phone. Their mobile phone can only be used for communication inside the door. Even if other people get it and want to connect, as long as it is recognized that something is wrong, it will be automatically destroyed. Can get through, but no one answers. After hanging up the phone, he found the location of Kongju's phone. However, when he saw the location displayed on the phone, he was stunned for a moment, then frowned even closer. How could it be in Liangchuan City, hotel? Didn't this person do the next mission well and go to the hotel to enjoy himself while he was on mission? But the Kongju he knew was not such a person. Luan Hua exist. Go to this hotel overnight and see if Kongju's mobile phone is in his possession. If not, bring out the person holding Kongju's mobile phone. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 467. In the hotel. Yun Chen and Yun Yi, mother and son, didn't sleep either. The two were discussing what to do with Lian and Li Yan. I'm going to call the police, Yun Chen said while looking at Yun Yi's expression. With the evidence we currently have and the testimony of you, the victim, they can't get away with the crime of intentional injury. With your injuries, they can't get away with it. The sentence is at least 1 year. It's better for Lian. She's pregnant and should be given a suspended sentence. This is also the reason why she has been struggling with this for the past 2 days. Yunyi was injured and lost her memory, which almost caused her to lose her only son. She felt that just a suspended sentence was too light for Lian. It's not that she doesn't have better and legal ways to make these two people pay. She even sent people to investigate the family backgrounds of Lian and Li Yan. Lian came from an ordinary family, while Li Yan was slightly better off and could be considered a wealthy family, but he was still not good enough in front of her. Without much effort, she can make these two people have no real jobs in their lives, no company dares to hire them, and they will regret what they did for the rest of their lives. But if she does this, she will also pay attention from time to time, or listen to the people below to report on the current situation of the two. Just for the sake of Lian and Li Yan, she didn't even bother to waste a second of her time for these two people. It would be better to call the police directly. Even if Lian does not go to jail because of her pregnancy, as long as she has a criminal record, there will be a stain on her life that can never be erased. This is much less troublesome than watching her in person. You brat, you won't be soft-hearted, will you? Yunyi was so aroused by the disgusting look from his own mother that he shook his head vigorously and replied loudly, no way. Okay, don't shake it. Just as the memory came back, be careful that it was shaken again. Yun Chan slapped him on the top of his head. Tomorrow morning, we will go report the crime together. Yunyi shook his head and nodded, yeah. After reporting the crime, do you still plan to stay in the country, or go abroad with me? After a pause, she continued, the international fashion ceremony will be held in a month. Ling 11 will definitely attend, and her assistant will definitely attend. I'll take it with me too. Although she sincerely felt that the possibility of her brat being with that Changning was very slim, but what if? Look at the way this brat looked for a girlfriend in front of him, she was really worried. Me, I'm going abroad with you. Is there anyone in your team who needs me? I can drive pretty well and I've also learned photography. Yun Chan couldn't help but chuckle, if you want to join my team, you have a lot to learn. Asterisk. The relationship between the mother and son has softened due to this incident, but this relaxed atmosphere has not affected the neighbor who is separated by a wall at all. What is this and where did you get it? Lian looked at what Li Yan was holding in his hand, her eyes blank for a moment before she remembered, where did you find it? It's at the bottom of your backpack, Li Yan admitted without hesitation that he had rummaged through his bag. I was packing my backpack just now and heard something buzzing in your backpack, so I took it out and took a look. It looked like a mobile phone. But there are no mobile phones like this on the market, and I dare say you can't do it with your own abilities. There is still sand in the gap. Lian opened her mouth, but under Li Yan's increasingly aggressive eyes, she finally replied hesitantly, yes, it belongs to the person who gave us the USB flash drive in the desert before. He died at that time, and Yunyi said he should bury it. I felt it from the man's pocket when I was helping him carry it, and I thought it should be quite valuable, so I hid it and took it back. Then, too many things happened and I forgot about it. Li Yan now felt like he got to know the person in front of him again. You dare to obey the dead man's things, I am really convinced. Lian shrank her shoulders and looked at the strange-shaped mobile phone in Li Yan's hand. A small light kept flashing. Did someone call this mobile phone just now? I don't know. Li Yan frowned and shook his head. I just turned it out and it stopped ringing. I've never seen this thing before, and I don't know how to operate it. As he said this, he was so irritated that he patted it again. He got off the table and said, we can't get out now, even if we want to find someone to take a look. How did he end up in this situation? But when it came to not being able to get out, Lian took a few steps back to avoid being used as a punching bag by Li Yan nearby, and then cautiously said, now that Yunyi has recovered his memory, Will he call the police directly? Let's. The next words were blocked by Li Yan, who rushed over and covered his mouth, unable to speak out. Lian couldn't help but tremble when she met Li Yan's fierce eyes, but soon she felt that the hand pressing on her mouth was shaking even more than she was. This shows that Li Yan has also thought about this possibility, and is even less afraid than she is. Then the eldest brother should stop laughing at the second brother. Well, let me go, you're on my stomach. After all, it was his son, but Li Yan still warned him, don't talk nonsense before letting go. Now how to do? How do I know? How can I escape from the eyes of the bodyguards outside? There should be surveillance in this room. Li Yan stood up irritably, wandering back and forth like a trapped animal. Wait a minute. A sudden scream made him stop suddenly. What happened again? I suddenly remembered. Lian stared at the mobile phone on the coffee table. Our suite has no signal. Although Yunyi and Yunyi's mother did not confiscate their mobile phones, there was no signal, and their mobile phones were no different from decorations. But why can this mobile phone make calls? Satellite telephone. The two of them shouted in unison. Although it was different from the satellite phones they had seen, they could only guess this. Do you still remember that strange USB flash drive? I have an idea. Li Yan took a deep breath and said, tell me about it. Now that he has seen Lian's vicious nature and boldness, maybe the idea that comes up this time will actually come true. That day, the palm of the hand of the one who snatched the USB flash drive from me was burned, but nothing happened to us, which means that the USB flash drive must not be ordinary, and the person who died in the desert before was probably not an ordinary person either. I still remember that man doesn't look like an ordinary person. Now his companion is calling, probably looking for him. We have his mobile phone, so can we ask him to rescue us? Li Yan looked thoughtful, but his hand had unconsciously touched his phone. Let me study this thing first. It was rare for the two of them to be close together. No matter how late it was, you and I studied each other's words on the phone. The bodyguard sitting in front of the surveillance camera watching the two people's movements didn't care. Several bodyguards were guarding them, and they were still on the top floor. If someone really came to rescue them, they would only be left together in the end. If you catch someone, maybe the boss will give them a bonus. In other words, when the two of them started researching together, the screen that had always been dark really brightened up. However, before they were happy for a few seconds, Li Yan felt that his right hand holding the phone suddenly went numb and lost consciousness. At the same time, there was an unpleasant burning smell coming from the phone. They were both dumbfounded. At the same time, Luan Hua, who was driving over, received instructions from Yin Chong. Kongju's mobile phone location has disappeared and his personal information has been locked. There is no need to doubt now that someone has taken his mobile phone. I am most likely, he's dead. Just knock him out when he gets there. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 468. Nearly a minute passed. The two of them desperately accepted the reality that their mobile phones were scrapped. Li Yan shook his still numb arms and fingers. This should be the kind of mobile phone that is only used by a dedicated person. As long as it recognizes that it is not used by the person, it will be automatically scrapped. But this also proves that people who can own this mobile phone are definitely not ordinary. Who in the right mind would use this kind of mobile phone? Then, can it still be repaired? Li Yan couldn't help but glance at Lian and said angrily, I studied management in college, not mechanics. I'm still studying, but it's smoking. How can I study? Lian knew in her heart that there was little hope of recovery, but she finally had a glimmer of hope, only to have her hope shattered in the blink of an eye. It was really unbearable. Okay, it's all in vain, go to sleep. Can you still sleep? For so many days of work, every day, they often say that they can quarrel in 2 words, and they are a little nervous. Fortunately, the child in Lian's belly was strong and nothing happened despite all the trouble. Sleeping in separate rooms is for sure. Entering the room, closing the door and locking it, Lian touched his arm that was still not feeling much relief, and his lips turned pale little by little. Then what the is a cell phone? It was an electric shock just now, right? Had I known it earlier, I wouldn't have dug it out of curiosity, and now there's nothing like this. Because his arms were not feeling relieved, and he still felt uneasy in his heart, he tossed and turned in bed and couldn't fall asleep. Lian, who lives in the next room, gets tired easily because of her pregnancy. In addition, she couldn't control her mental tension during the day, so she didn't last long before she fell asleep. The bodyguard standing in front of the video also raised his hand to cover his mouth and yawned. I thought that two people could really research something. It's boring. Asterisk. On the RV. Zhang Lingzi listened to the sound of water in the bathroom stopping and moved the painting in his hand to the folding table beside the bed. When someone came out of the door, wiping their hair with a towel, they just raised their hands. Shen Yunqing looked at her and then at the painting in her hand. After putting down the towel, he walked over obediently and sat sideways by the bed. Zhang Lingzi quietly turned to the table and said, "Let's talk." Shen Yunqing knew that this disaster was a bit sad. Fortunately, he thought about his words while washing. At this moment, he cleared his throat and spoke slowly. The painting was painted in the 3rd year of Lingxiu. I asked the new emperor to send it to in the Huguo temple. Incense is offered. Why do you do this? Since you painted it, why did you ask the new emperor to send it instead of you yourself? Since it was sent to Huguo temple, why did it return to the hands of the Zhang family? I want your Majesty to be rich and worry-free, and live a long life. But at that time, I couldn't go to Huguo temple in person. Zhang Lingzi felt her heart tremble suddenly. Although she established an immortal foundation in her previous life, in her early years there were wars and wars between the warring factions. Later, she led the army to fight for the unification of the world. How could she not die? Huangtu's hegemony has always been built on numerous corpses. So she never believed in the afterlife. I never thought that anyone would want her to be rich, worry-free, and live a long life in the next life. But it was Shen Yunqing's last sentence that made her heart tremble. What do you mean there is no way? Are you sick? Shen Yunqing smiled so hard that no trace of gloom could be seen. Your Majesty, this is something no one could have expected. This is considered an indirect admission. He was also blocking her mouth. She was the same back then. Who could have expected that he would suddenly be unable to hold on anymore? But even so, she still couldn't let it go. I was injured too much in the early years of the war, so I got out of control. You, even 3 years later, you will be younger than me. She still remembers the changes in the age of population death in the Yuan Zhao period according to the statistics of the Ministry of Household Affairs. Taking the average, from at the beginning, it was about 50, but by the time she died, it had increased to more than 55. Although her family Shenqing was mostly a civil servant during his reign, he was also skilled in martial arts and was always in good health. She thought at that time that it would be okay to be a senator of 3 dynasties. In the history books, although it was said that she failed to become a senator of the 3 dynasties, she only said that she retired. She could still deceive herself. Now that I am in front of her, I cannot deceive myself no matter what. The remaining questions were all stuck in my throat after seeing the relieved and smiling face in front of me. She forced herself to smile and look relaxed. Then your wish came true, and it exceeded your expectations. How could she not be lucky to be reborn in a prosperous world 1,000 years later with the memories of her previous life? Fortunately, she is not the only one who is lucky. Put the painting away. Although there are still a few things that she is confused about, she doesn't want to ask them now. Time was running out, and she had too many things to say, and this was more important than solving her doubts. So after Shen Yunqing put away the painting, Zhang Lingzi dragged him to lie on the bed together. I remember Zhu told me that you are not in good health right now. You will go into the desert again tomorrow. Remember, the purpose of investigating Chang Kangman is secondary. The most important thing is to take care of yourself. This one must be listen, it's an imperial edict. When you come out of the desert, you need to go to the hospital for a physical checkup first. If you have time, I will go with you. The modern equipment is quite powerful. Also, I was recording a show before and met a very good doctor. He prescribed medicine for me to regulate my body once, and the effect was very good. I will take you there when the time comes, but it's a bit far away. But it's necessary to go. I want to live as long as you want in this life, and you have to stay with me. This is also an imperial edict. Shen Yunqing didn't even know how many orders he had answered. He waited until the person in front of him was talking and fell asleep in a daze, then he tucked in the quilt and stood up gently, walked to the coffee table and picked up his mobile phone, which lit up a few times. Wuju, someone left, Luan Hua, who was under Yin Chong. It's just that it's hard to send people to follow you in this area. Shen Yunqing, Zhou is just aware that you are suspicious with his mentality. There will be a tough battle to get to the ruins of the ancient capital. He will set off early tomorrow morning. Since such a tough battle cannot be avoided, it is equally important to seize the opportunity. Wuju, okay, you go to bed early. Asterisk. Li Yan tossed and turned in bed until midnight before he managed to fall asleep. Even if you fall asleep, it's not very peaceful. Until I noticed that my body was getting colder and colder, and I even smelled the smell of sand and dust. The desert is like a nightmare to him now. Even if he gradually wakes up, he doesn't want to and dare not open his eyes. Until a cold and rough hand pinched the chin, forcing him to open his mouth. You. He only had time to shout out the word you before something cold and moving was fed into his mouth. Luan Hua didn't even knock him out, but simply rolled his eyes and was frightened. Fainted. Luan Hua. How on earth did you get Kongju's cell phone with such courage? As for Lian, who was sleeping in another room, it was even easier. She didn't wake up at all from the beginning to the end, and she slept terribly. This step went so smoothly that Luan Hua himself found it incredible. She thought that the person who could get Kongju's mobile phone must have some skills. Now it seems that he didn't pick up the phone after Kongju's death, right? In this case, what value do these two people have? However, since it was an adult who ordered the person to be taken away, Luan Hua endured his disgust and continued working hard without complaint. With a snap of his fingers, both Li Yan, who fainted from fright, and Lian, who was still sleeping soundly, climbed out of bed strangely, and stood quietly in front of Luan Hua with their eyes squinted as if they were asleep and awake. Follow me. End of chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 469. If there are outsiders present at this moment, you will find an especially strange scene. The bodyguards who originally worked 2 shifts to ensure uninterrupted guarding 24 hours a day were still waiting quietly at the door, but when Luan Hua led Lian and Li Yan out of the suite and walked past them, these people just watched, indifferent. Even the bodyguard sitting in front of the monitor didn't react at all as he watched the 3 figures walking through the corridor and getting into the elevator. After walking to the surveillance corner across the road from the hotel, Luan Hua pulled off the hat that had been covering her head, opened the rear door, and roughly pushed the 2 people standing there dumbly into the car. Then he closed the door and got into the passenger seat, started the car and drove away. Almost half an hour later, on the top floor of the hotel, The first person to regain consciousness was the captain of Yun Chan's bodyguard team. He was originally going to take over from the deputy captain in the early morning and continue to monitor the two people in the suite next door, but he just woke up and went to the bathroom, and was caught off guard. He actually fell asleep again while sitting on the toilet. This is simply unbelievable for people like them who are well trained and can wake up instantly even if there is a mosquito buzzing in their ears as long as they do not enter deep sleep. After sensing something was wrong, he immediately rushed to the handover location. Lao Lu, Lao Gao. The two people who were called couldn't help but trembled, and shouted in unison, "Captain! Is there anything unusual between 3 o'clock and 3:15? The two people who were asked were both stunned. It was approaching shift change time. They had just looked at their watches, and it was not yet 3 o'clock. Why are you being asked about 3:15? After regaining consciousness, the two of them moved in unison and looked at their watches together. 3:20. At this time, the calmness on the faces of the two men could no longer be maintained. Where did the more than 20 minutes go? Is it possible that it could still be stolen? The bodyguard captain was already panicking. Quick, go in and see if those two people are still there. This time, without wasting a second, the three people didn't even bother to knock on the door and rushed in directly. But there is no one in the living room. The bedroom is empty. The bathroom and balcony are also empty. The three of them stared at the messy bed in front of them for 3 seconds. I got out of bed by myself, it's not like I was dragged down. The question is, what about people? The three people rushed to the monitoring room with the last glimmer of hope, and happened to bump into the team members watching the monitoring. "Captain, Vice Captain, I was looking for you, something happened." Until he sat back in front of the monitor, the man's hands were still shaking uncontrollably. "I swear I definitely didn't doze off, but just for a moment, I found that the time on the monitor jumped forward 20 times. More than 20 minutes. I thought the machine was malfunctioning, so I rewind the video to more than 20 minutes ago." 4 pairs of eyes stared at the monitor in front of them. Just before 3 o'clock, on the small screen that monitors the elevator room, the elevator door suddenly opened, and a person walked out, completely covered in darkness. He couldn't even tell whether he was a man or a woman. People. At this time, no matter whether you have just watched it again or whether you are watching it for the first time, you can't help but get a chill down your back. Soon, the black figure appeared on the second small screen, then the third, until it stopped at the door of the steward's room. The two bodyguards who were guarding the door before looked at the monitor's playback of themselves, who turned a blind eye to outsiders as if they were blind and deaf. They no longer knew that their backs were getting cold, and their entire bodies were getting cold. How could it be? But no one paid attention to his trembling words at this moment, and the playback continued. The man entered the house and went to the bedroom where Lian and Li Yan were with a clear purpose. When he saw Lian and Li Yan following the men without resistance at all, he walked out of the room and got on the elevator. Bodyguard the captain couldn't sit still anymore and stood up. "I have to wake up the boss. This is no longer something he can solve or even understand. The only comforting thing now is that the man in black has no intention of killing them. Otherwise, based on the opponent's methods they saw in the replay, it would be useless no matter how powerful they were. It would be easy for the opponent to kill them." It's 3:30. Yun Chan and Yun Yi, who were called up, also sat in front of the monitor. Yun Chan took a sip of warm water to calm down and said, "Go back and turn on 0.5x speed. I'll watch it again. Stop, zoom in on that person's hand." After enlarging the hand to almost occupy the entire screen, everyone watching the monitor saw that the man seemed to be feeding something into Li Yan's mouth. Yun Chan put down the cup and took a deep breath. That thing should be used to make the two of them obedient. "Medicine," Yun Yi frowned. "What kind of medicine can make people be so obedient and not resist at all?" "It's hard to say. Wait a minute, look at the coffee table. Yunyi took the mouse from the bodyguard's hand impatiently, and pulled out 2 screenshots by clicking 3 times, 5 times, and 2 times. There was a black rectangular object on the coffee table. It was there when the man came in, but it was gone after he left. The picture is enlarged again, and now the black rectangular object is very clear. The bodyguard responsible for watching the surveillance slapped his forehead, annoyance flashed across his face, and he did not dare to hide it and said honestly, "This thing was taken out by Lian from the desert, the person she met with the young master. She said it was in when I was burying someone, I saw it and took it away." Yunyi suddenly looked speechless. When he thought that Lian had already broken through the lower limit, he didn't expect that this person could break through the lower limit even more. This is considered a waste of money. Then what? This should be a mobile phone. There was a call coming in, but it hung up before it could be received. Before they went to bed, the two of them discussed whether to use this phone to call for help, but they didn't know where they bumped into it. This thing directly, it was automatically destroyed and it was smoking. I thought this thing must be useless, and the boss must have gone to bed, so I didn't report it. Yun Chan looked over coldly. How could she not know the thoughts of her bodyguards? She prided herself on her ability, so she felt that this was just a trivial matter and there was no need to disturb her rest. But the man in black who came this time was not an ordinary person at all. It is very likely that he is someone like Chang Ning who has some unknown abilities. Lian and Li Yan, if it was not what she expected, they should have been taken away like this because they took the mobile phone. Then shall we call the police now, or shall we find a way to pursue him? Yun Chan was silent for a moment but still shook his head. The man's methods were weird. He didn't kill us this time. He probably didn't want to cause trouble. But if we don't understand each other and won't let him go, that's not necessarily the case. Furthermore, it seems from the surveillance that Lian and Li Yan took the initiative to follow the man away. The alarm is untenable. This alarm will not work. Boss, isn't there nothing we can do? Yun Chan stood up, suppressed the weakness that spread in his heart, and nodded lightly. Go do your thing, and then copy the video just now and give it to me, as well as the 2 findings in the video. Tell me clearly. Landmark out. The USB flash drive was taken away by Zhang Lingzi, as well as the sketch of the owner of the USB flash drive and the mobile phone. The girl definitely didn't take it away for collection. Now that this happened again, she must send the video to Zhang Lingzi for a look. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 470. In the room. The mother and son, who were not sleepy, sat opposite each other. Don't go abroad with me. Mom. Yun Chan's face was solemn. That person was met by you and Lian together. Now there is a high probability that Lian was taken away because of that mobile phone. When the other party knows that there was you at that time, your situation may be different. There will also be dangers. It is true that she has status now, but what happened just now clearly told her that she still has no ability to protect her son. Tomorrow morning, I will send you to Ling 11's place. She has capable people around her, and you will be safer staying with her than following me. You will be an assistant then, with a little wink, and work hard. She will give me this face. Yun Yi looked at the concern for him in his mother's eyes, took a deep breath, and nodded lightly. Lian is a man with a weak heart and a snake swallowing an elephant. He has fallen into this fate at his own fault. But he also had the fault of not understanding people clearly. Even if we separate decisively, if that person knows from Lian that there is still him at that time and targets him, then everyone around him will be in danger. I will be good to Miss Zhang, and I will do whatever she asks me to do. Yun Chan smiled happily and reached out to touch the head of the brat in front of him. He is much more sensible than before. After all, I've been through the gates of for a while, and if I still don't know how to be sensible, I will despise myself. It was finally dawn. Yun Chan estimated that even if Zhang Lingzi was not awake yet, she would be close, so he sent the video he had prepared. There is also a message attached at the end. Please also ask Ling 11 to help take care of my Xiaoi, thank you very much. When he received the news, Zhang Lingzi had already woken up. But I haven't gotten up yet. She was lying on her side on the bed and watching Shen Yunqing, who had already gotten up, sort out his equipment. Yesterday, I was dressed in casual clothes, but today I have changed into a complete set of adventure clothes. I have high-cut short boots that tie up my trouser legs to prevent sand from filling them. There is also a waterproof backpack on the table. The eyes that fell on him seemed to be real. Shen Yunqing buckled the black light dagger at his waist and covered it with his coat to completely hide it. He turned back to meet Zhang Lingzi's gaze and said, "There's nothing happening outside. Do you want to sleep a little longer?" "I'm not going to sleep anymore." Zhang Lingzi waved her hand, lifted the quilt and sat up. "You continue to do your work, Sister Yun just sent me a message." As he spoke, the sound fell silent, and he frowned while looking at the phone. Shen Yunqing saw this and walked over. "What?" Zhang Lingzi handed him the phone directly. She said she wanted to send her son to me to help look after him, which felt a bit strange. "Is it the one that provides USB flash drives and sketch maps?" Zhang Lingzi said that she was about to type a question and saw another video sent by the other party, so she clicked on it. Shen Yunqing was about to stand up when she grabbed him and said, "Let's watch together." 10 minutes later. 4 more people were watching together. The video was also uploaded from the mobile phone to the computer brought by Changfu. The object that looked like a mobile phone was recognized by Wuju at a glance. It's the communicator of Chang Kangman. Considering that there were still people present who didn't know what the communicator was used for, he explained a few more words. This communicator can only be used by internal personnel of Changkang sect, such as Su Qingmei, who can only be regarded as peripheral personnel, and does not have this qualification. It also has their own internal software, which is used for communication or receiving tasks. Changfu waited for him to finish and then added, "I got one before and wanted to study it. But this thing can only be used by myself. There is a powerful automatic destruction program in it. Once outsiders want to use it, the machine will started self-destructing immediately." Looking at the video, the communicator has already started self-destructing. So, it was Luan Hua who took these 2 people away. Then he had to obey Yin Chang's order. It takes almost 6 or 7 hours to get here from the hotel. Luan Hua started driving at 3 o'clock, and at 9 o'clock you can come back soon. When Yin Chang sees them, he will know that his comrades died in the desert and left a USB flash drive with clues. Zhang Lingzi looked down at the time. It's still 10 minutes to 7 o'clock. After watching the video, she understood why Yun Chan asked Yun Yi to come back and follow her. Yun Yi and Lian were the people from Changkang clan that they met together. Now only Lian is taken away. What if there are still clues about Yun Yi? At least she has a magician like Chang Ning by her side. Yun Chan probably thinks that Yun Yi will be safer if he follows her. But, Yin Chang is on the set. I'm afraid this is not a sheep entering the tiger's mouth. We still have time. Their lives will not be in danger before Yin Chang sees them, Wuju said and raised his head. "Do you want to save people?" Zhang Lingzi glanced at his bare head without a hat and felt that it should have the 4 characters compassion for heaven and mercy engraved on it. "No help." These 2 words were filled with chills, and I couldn't help but feel my fingers tremble slightly. But before he could speak, Shen Yunqing took the lead and said, "Those 2 people committed murder intentionally, and now they are bringing the blame on themselves. Furthermore, looking at the video, it is obvious that they have been tricked, and even if they save them, it will be of no use. On the contrary, it will ruin our business." Zhang Lingzi nodded with satisfaction at this explanation. "Wuju, you are in tune with each other, let's do it." In that case, get ready to go. Although we can already predict that we will definitely encounter it, it is still important to seize the opportunity. After a while, the people in the carriage dispersed. Yin Chong is on the set, and he will definitely try his best to contain you when the time comes. Not only do I have to be careful, but you also have to be careful in everything. Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing met each other's eyes. It is a look that makes you want to tie the person in front of you to your belt. But with reason and restraint. In 1 month, I will be invited to attend an international fashion festival abroad. Do we want to go abroad together to see the scenery outside? Want. Then how did you get out and how did you get back? Seeing Shen Yunqing nod, Zhang Lingzi reached over and grabbed his arm. Hold on tight. Until there was a knock on the carriage door. Chen Jiying's voice came from outside, "Sir, everything has been packed and everyone is on standby." Zhang Lingzi then let go of the person in her arms, and her emotions suppressed her voice, "Go." She walked to the door of the car and watched Shen Yunqing get on the car. The car's field of vision turned into a smaller and smaller black dot until it disappeared no longer. An inexplicable emotion also surged into my heart. For a moment, she even wanted to throw away the unfinished scene in front of her and catch up at all costs. In her previous life, after she ascended the throne, she went on several military expeditions in person. Each time, Shen Yunqing brought hundreds of civil and military officials to see her and the soldiers off. At that time, Shen Yunqing, who was standing on the city wall watching her chariot go further and further away, did Shen Yunqing feel the same way?